call the meeting to order. The Highway Commission. Lori, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, for the record, the State Highway Commission is assembled in the O'Neill City Office at 401 Fremont Street in O'Neill, Nebraska. The date is Friday, June 27th, 2025, and the time is 8:30 a.m. The time is 8:36 a.m. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the room. Respond to indicate your presence at today's meeting. Commissioner Hawks.
Here.
Commissioner Kindig.
Here.
Commissioner Leaf Green.
Here.
Commissioner Wolford.
Here. Okay, so I'll probably get, since we thought we were gonna have a commission online, we not have any plan, we are going to pursue communication. Get a commission online, a lot of the idea, or the officially otherwise, we can proceed with the vote, and then we'll ratify. You're like to have the ODOT's lead attorney here today, and that's the legal advice we got. So that's the process we're going to follow. So with that, next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. No move. Second. Overall, please.
The item in question is the approval of the May 9th meeting minutes. Commissioner Hawks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kindig,
Yes.
Commissioner Leaf Green,
Yeah.
Commissioner Wolford.
Yes. Productions. Announcements. Mark, would you like to introduce the vote for?
Yes, from the district, with me today, we have Jason Lane, the district construction engineer. And I believe that's it as far as state employees that are with us today.
I'm not sure they're going to introduce themselves, and stop and start with Will.
Bill Jabber, Deputy Director Engineering, Nebraska Department of Transportation.
Jeff Schroeder, Chief Counsel, Nebraska Department of Transportation.
Nick Sislo, Deputy Director of.
Brandon Egan, or Design Engineer. Don Lott, Project Studies and Media Project Development.
Molly Mellinger, our executive coordinator, Highway Commission secretary.
Just so everybody knows, this is the public hearing for District 8. The main purpose is we're going to have a presentation by the district engineer, and I think the construction engineer also. And at the end of that, we're going to be applying for public comments. We'll be able to meet those comments. The issue with road in District 8. Next time.
All right, thank you. I guess welcome to O'Neill. I'd like to welcome the Highway Commissioners, Director Kramer, for this meeting of the Highway Commission and District 8's program hearing. We have slides. Okay. Back up one. I am Mark Kovar, the District 8 engineer for the Nebraska Department of Transportation. District 8 is comprised of 9 counties in north central Nebraska with just over 2,100 lane miles of mostly 2-lane asphalt highways. And as you can see from this slide of the district showing the highway projects that are programmed in the next 6 years, we have plenty between now and 2031. But before we get started, I would like the projector to work. There we go. Thank you. Before we get started, this is the first District 8 program hearing and Highway Commission meeting since former District 8 Highway Commissioner Jerome Fagerlin passed away nearly 1 year ago. I would like to recognize Jerome for his many years of service on the Highway Commission and his service to District 8 during that time. And I will express my continued condolences to his family. I am happy to report that one highway that Jerome and I talked about quite a bit was Highway 11 from Butte north to the South Dakota state line. Has finally been resurfaced this year. Hard to see in this pictures, but this was one of District 8's worst highways. And Jerome traveled it frequently on his fishing trips to South Dakota. So it came up quite a bit in our conversations. And it's unfortunate that Jerome passed away before being able to see this project get completed. So please keep Jerome in your thoughts and prayers, and his family in your thoughts and prayers. And next, we will talk about other things we're going to talk about this morning. Basically, the state of the highways in District 8. Then Jason Lane will cover some of the upcoming highway improvement projects that we've got. And we'll do the take public input and ask or answer any questions from members of the public. The state of the highways in District 8 is really pretty good. Yeah, the NSI, or the Nebraska Serviceability Index, the average for District 8 is 83. And that's on a scale of 0 to 100, where anything above 70 is considered good. 99% of the highways in the district, that is those that have an NSI above 70, are considered in good condition. So things are good. The average yearly cost of what it takes to maintain the highways, both in contracted construction projects and in-house maintenance work, is just over $18,700 per lane mile. We talk about this NSI quite a bit in the department, and it gets referred to as a judge or a measure of how good our pavements are. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it, so what it is really, and what does it mean? The Nebraska Serviceability Index is a calculated index. It's not something you actually go out and measure with a ruler, but it's a calculated index where various observable pavement distresses like rutting and faulting and cracking and patching, bleeding, things that you can see on the surface, those things are measured, both the extent, how much of it there is, and the severity. They're plugged into a formula, and that formula, I guess, it spits out a number called the NSI. Some pavement distresses can be masked, by maintenance work, such as a fog sealing or armor coating. They can cover up the cracks. So the NSI is a good measure of pavement condition, but it's not the only thing that matters when you're trying to decide which highways to program. As I said, it's a good indicator of pavement condition, and from that we get the remaining service life. It works both with asphalt and concrete pavements, meaning we don't have two NSI numbers, an NSI number for concrete and an NSI number for asphalt. We can use to compare the two different types of pavement basically on the same scale. High NSI means pavements are in good condition with lots of service life. Low NSI obviously means they're not in as good condition. Pavements that have an NSI near 100 have 15 to 20 years worth of service life in them. And roads with an NSI of around 70 have reached the end of their optimal service life. It's time to do something, resurfacing, some sort of pavement treatment to extend that service life. Wanted to show an example of what a road with an NSI of 70 looks like. It's hard to see on the screen versus one with an NSI near 100. But basically the one with the NSI of 70 has got lots of cracks, it's rutted. It's in poor condition. The one with the NSI of near 100 has just been resurfaced within the last year. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about what I call the myth that I hear being talked about. That with roads in District 8 that are in good condition, we can get by with less funding because we have good roads and we have low traffic volumes. And while that's a fair question to ask, nothing could be further from the truth. Road conditions deteriorate rapidly and costs go up if work isn't performed in a timely manner. Maintaining the highway system in the state is NDOT's primary priority and not something that should be thought of as an afterthought. We need to keep our good roads good, and we have a solid asset management plan in place to do just that. Statewide, our goal is to have an average NSI of 84.7. This recommendation was made by the SPOT team back in 2007 and was endorsed by the Highway Commission at that time. To get to an NSI of 84.7, the District 8 needs basically $271 million over the next 6 years. We're currently funded at about $240 million, which is roughly 1 or 2 projects a year short of where we need to be. At this level, our pavement conditions will deteriorate faster than we should allow. Funding for each district's system preservation needs are based on needs of the district compared to those of the entire state. The system to do this was developed by the funding distribution team back in 2008, and those recommendations were endorsed by the Highway Commission at that time as well. It's a flexible system that uses a 10-year planning horizon based on the NSI to determine the needs of each district and the state as a whole. This system has worked quite well for us over the years. In 2008, only 78% of the roads were in good condition. Now, 92% of the roads in the state are in good condition. Recently, some have put forward the notion that funding should be distributed based on population or where the fuel is purchased. And I'd like to say if funding was distributed that way, it would devastate the roads in rural Nebraska. And not only would it devastate those roads, but it would also needlessly overfund the urban districts in the state. And there's, over the next 6 years, there's already about $2 billion worth of work programmed in those urban districts. And that's including all kinds of work, interstate reconstruction, bridge, capital improvement, as well as the asset preservation work. And I thought I'd point out also, if the Federal Highway Trust Fund money was distributed based on where fuel was purchased, 5 states in the United States would get 34% of the money. It would be states like Texas, Oklahoma, or not Oklahoma, Texas, California, New York, states like that would end up with the majority of the federal highway funding. So when different highway fundings are proposed, I guess ask the commission to consider how those changes will affect the rural and urban districts, and make sure that those funding are based on needs and not just wants. And so at this time, I guess I'll wrap things up and just say that in a nutshell, our NSI covers pavement condition and remaining service life, and that funding should be based on needs of the state highway system as a whole. And to discuss some of those projects that are coming up in District 8, I will turn the chair over to Jason Lane, our District 8 construction engineer.
All right, thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here today. And before we talk about future projects, I wanted to cover some of the current work going on in the district. There are 12 projects that are active or part of the 2025 fiscal year construction program, which totals about $46 million. However, we are managing a lot more work than what is shown here. This is a map that I created that shows all the construction projects that's going to be active in the 2025 year, shown in blue. In the green, kind of hard to see, but the green indicates pavement preservation work that's going to be completed by district maintenance forces. There are 20 construction projects being managed by my team this season, totaling about $86 million, which is a record for us in 1 year. District 8 has currently 12 active projects, and by the end of the season, I expect 18 will be completed, with the remaining 2 scheduled to go through the winter and be completed next spring. On the state highway system, we'll be resurfacing approximately 62 miles of pavement, applying microsurfacing treatments to another 112 miles, repairing 5 bridges, and we just finished a bridge replacement project. Some of these projects began in 2024 and are carried forward into 25, including the Minnekadooza Creek Bridge, West 4th Street in Valentine, and in Butte North. Also included are several LPA projects, one being the Bassett Northeast Bridge replacement, which is a $10 million project, which is the final recovery tied to the devastating floods from 2019, which damaged numerous bridges along the Niobrara River, including this one shared by Kippahaw and Rock counties. Another is the Calumet State Rec Road project near Burwell, which was managed on behalf of the NDOT on behalf of the named Nebraska Game and Parks, as well as Garfield and Luke counties. This $12.8 million project began in the fall and wrapped up in June, avoiding the peak recreation season. This project resurfaced and reconstructed all the access roads, campgrounds, boat launches, day use areas, and around the fish hatchery. If you're a camper and angler, I highly recommend you go visit the Calumet Rec area. It turned out really good, and we're getting a lot of positive feedback from the public. I have a few current projects that I want to highlight. First being the Minnekadooza Creek Bridge replacement near Valentine, was constructed by General Excavating under a $2.8 million contract. Because the bridge couldn't be phased for replacement, a detour was required. The detour utilized 6 miles of Gravel County roads. If we would have used a detour that had used the state highway system, it had been 112 miles in one direction. Cherry County and NDOT crews maintain the detour as often as 4 days a week throughout the winter to keep it in good condition. The contract required that this project start after Labor Day and be reopened to traffic before Memorial Day weekend. This route is vital to local businesses that depend on tourism and recreation that serve the nearly 75,000 canoers, kayakers, and tubers who float the Niobrara National Scenic River each year. Located within the Fort Niobrara National Wildlife Refuge, this project incorporated the largest girders in NDOT history, spanning an impressive 176 feet. These oversized girders were essential to providing wildlife passage beneath the bridge and minimizing the project's overall footprint. The design approach was key to securing planning and permitting approvals because the refuge owns the land and NDOT maintains it through a permanent easement. This project also marked the first years of 47 BDR concrete, which is a high-performance concrete mixture developed in collaboration with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and has a higher coarse aggregate content and a lower cement content, which is designed to reduce bridge deck cracking and improve long-term durability. Demolition of the existing bridge occurred in September, and with an advanced construction schedule, girders were placed in December. Bridge deck was poured in March and it was reopened to traffic in April ahead of schedule. This project is now substantially complete with only a few minor items work remaining. Mark mentioned the NDOT North project earlier. This project addresses a corridor has long been in poor condition. The 7 miles of pavement along the segment was very rough and unstable, so rough and in fact that the district had implemented a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit for safety for a number of years while this project was in development. This $9.1 million project is being constructed by Knife River Midwest, with work beginning in April 2024. Work completed last season included bridge repairs, landslide stabilization, extensive culvert improvements, and placement of approximately 95,000 cubic yards of embankment to bring the roadway up to current 3R standards. This spring, construction resumed by first strengthening the road base. Portland cement powder was blended 11 inches deep into the foundation to enhance its strength and durability. Then in May, crews placed 4 inches of new asphalt on top of the stabilized base. While several items of work remain, the motorists are benefiting from a new improved driving surface. Next, I want to highlight the West 4th Street Urban Reconstruction Project in Valentine. Although it's just 0.8 miles in length, this project has a $6.2 million contract and is being constructed by Paulson Incorporated. It currently connects to the Main Street corridor, which underwent construction beginning in 2022 and was completed in 23. Both projects have been highly anticipated by local residents and Highway 83 users, addressing long-standing concerns about poor pavement conditions. Prior to construction, this segment was in very poor condition with a Nebraska Serviceability Index of just 37.69. Approximately half of the project requires full detour around the work zone, and the other half will be completed at phased under traffic. The project began in the fall of 24 with upgrades to the detour through the residential streets of Valentine, ensuring truck traffic could navigate it safely. Motorists traveling through Valentine today will use this detour. Work resumed in April this year, starting with the replacement of the storm sewer system, followed by upgrades to the city's utilities across under the highway. And the detour I mentioned before went into effect in May, and Paulson is installing new concrete pavement starting on June 18th. So the work is progressing steadily. Use of the detour is scheduled to end before school resumes in August, at which point construction will transition to the phased half of the project, and we anticipate full completion in October. Each year, District 8 contracts for roadway paint striping, and in 2025, this work will cost about $1.2 million. Unlike the other districts, Districts 7 and 8 must rely on contracted services to maintain our pavement markings. While these projects may not be high profile, they are essential and increasingly costly. Over the past 4 years, the cost to restripe our roadways has more than doubled. Historically, we repainted all the lines in the district without giving it much thought. But in 2023, this restriping project approached $2 million. It is no longer insignificant. In response, District 7 and 8 collaborated to develop a new striping specification focused on increasing retroreflectance, which is a measure of nighttime visibility and also the overall stripe quality. These new specifications were implemented in 2024 last year, and they've already made a difference. In District 8 alone, we reduced our striping needs by over 200 miles, and we continue to evaluate how traffic and winter operations affect these lines. We may be able to reduce the striping frequency further without sacrificing safety or visibility. Another innovation, kind of somewhat being led by District 8, is the use of cured-in-place culvert liners. While these liners have been used by the department for several years by the maintenance forces in a reactive fashion, we recognize the opportunity to incorporate them proactively. By lining deteriorated but culverts that are still functioning, we can significantly extend their service life. These liners minimize the substantial amount of work and risk associated with full replacement, especially for those deeply buried culverts. This process is remarkably efficient. After the culvert is cleared, the debris, the liner is pulled in place and is cured with ultraviolet curing equipment, and it hardens in a matter of minutes. The entire installation process takes just a few hours. And on the right shows the end result. Much like paint striping, retroreflectivity, it's not glamorous, but it's incredibly effective. These liners significantly reduce traffic disruptions and shorten the overall timeline of the project, making them a smart, low-impact solution that delivers. So looking ahead to the next construction season, 2026, our project list is noticeably shorter compared to the 20 active projects we have going on this season. After a demanding season marked by long hours and extraordinary dedication from our construction staff, this will be a welcome shift of pace. The total budget for 2026 is about $20 million less than 2025. And one project alone will account for nearly half of the available funding. That project is Brewster East, which has an estimated cost of $12.2 million. While pavement conditions are driving the need for the project and other factors providing some urgency. This image highlights the North Loop River, where it's migrating towards Highway 91 about 5 miles east of Brewster. We've been monitoring this site for years, and it keeps migrating closer. And currently, the top of the riverbank is less than 20 feet from the edge of the pavement, and there's 90 feet of elevation drop between the riverbed and the roadway. Given the terrain of the sandhills and instability of the riverbank, our design team determined that the most practical and effective long-term solution is relocate about 1.5 miles of highway, shifting the alignment up to 600 feet away from the river to ensure safety and stability. So the number and red highlighted projects on this map represent projects planned for 2026, which I kind of already highlighted. And the blue lines indicate projects currently programmed for 27 through 31. In the next couple of slides, we'll list out those projects and show some details. With the there are 48 projects shown across this slide and the next. I won't go into details of each one, but we can pause for a moment and you can read through the list. And if there's any questions, Mark or I would happy to discuss them. Come back to them if somebody wants to look at something in particular. So this is a continuation of this list. These 48 projects represent an investment of nearly $200 million, which is necessary to maintain the highways across District 8. Again, not going to go into anything in specifics, but we are happy to take questions. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Anybody on the commission have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move into the public input portion. So that anybody here that wishes to speak, ask to come forward. This is a public meeting. It's a recorded, so state your name, you represent, and spell your last name.
I'm Scott Manish from O'Neill. My last name's MENISH. The concerns I have is out here at Bosman's and around the state yard there. We just keep putting asphalt and tar in holes and not taking care of the problems. I'm talking to Mark, they're going to take that island and make it a tapered island because we have wind blades and towers come through there and they have to jump the island to get around the corner. And the other concern is down there through Neely, if you ever had a broken hip in the back of the ambulance, you can feel every one of them bumps going through Neely. Is there something that they could grind? I know they grind the pavement in Ewing that took care of some of that. But every bump in Neely, we tell our patients on the ambulance that you're going to feel it going through you or Neely. So, and then there's a bridge on the east side that's really, really bad. So that's all I have.
Yes, regarding the intersection at Bosselman's, it's the junction of Highway 20 and 281 that leads north out of O'Neill. And we do have that program to be to reconstruct that intersection in 2027. Right now, it is in pretty bad shape. It's a composite pavement, concrete underneath with an asphalt overlay that the asphalt keeps coming off, and it's a continual patching headache for us at this time. And also there is two raised islands, which when we reconstruct that intersection, we will make those islands with a sloped curb, so it's and with concrete, so long, heavy vehicles that need to negotiate that junction will be able to crawl up on the islands if necessary without breaking them all apart like they are now. And with regard to Neely, that is a District 3 project, or a city in District 3. So I would defer to Kevin Domagala, the District 3 engineer there. But there are grinding type of projects that can be done for concrete pavement like that. And I don't know if he has anything programmed for that or not.
Thank you. Any other?
Good morning. I'm Gary Connett, Connot. I'm the Holt County and Boyd County Highway Superintendent. Couple of questions is what's the status of the Elkhorn River Bridge east of O'Neill? I understand it's restricted to oversized loads. Of course, when that happens, the oversized loads go around a lot of times on the county road system. And then the other question is in Boyd County, south of Butte on Highway 11. On the north side of the Niagara River, there's a slide migrating towards the Highway 11 right of way. Just wondering what the status of the repair or the address in that issue is. Thank you.
Do you want anything?
Just gonna work is looking at getting his notes together. Can Jim again assist from this? We did, as of 9:06. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, I'm looking for the project that addresses the bridges southeast that Gary mentioned, and I'm not finding it on my spreadsheet, but it is programmed. And those projects are, or that there's two bridges very close to each other. Those bridges are scheduled to be completely removed and replaced, actually on new alignment. And in the rush of things, I'm not finding that project on my list here, but we do have that project program to be rescheduled, or those bridges to be replaced.
We can follow up if the.
Yep. And okay, thank you.
So I think the question was south of Butte on Highway 11, there's a slide. There's several slides all over the district that we were monitoring, and that's one of them. Our geotechnical engineers did come out and do some investigating on that particular slide, if I'm thinking of the same one, and we're going to be planting some brush, I guess, for lack of better words. It's to try to stabilize that slope and hold it without moving any further. But at this time, we're not doing anything extensive. So that's the same one south of Butte.
If you are monitoring.
Yeah, we've got, in that corner of the district, there's landslides are pretty common and over into District 3, so we keep an eye on them.
Thank you.
2029 is when we have those O'Neill Southeast bridges scheduled to be replaced.
Thank you.
Before we continue, Commissioner Mello has joined us. So
But we really haven't gone around yet.
we have the forum.
Any further public comments? Do you have anybody online?
No, we don't.
That then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Highway 26 Heartland Expressway location and access control people.
Morning, Director Kramer and Commissioners. My name is Dawn Knott, and I'm the Project Studies Engineer in our Project Development Division, Central Complex. And I'm here today to present the Minutair to 385 project. In this presentation, I will discuss the purpose and need for the project, provide a project overview and scope of work. I will discuss some history of the project, show some design features, outline the public involvement, show the cost and schedule, and then I'll request the Highway Commission recommendation for the project location, design, and use of access control of the project. The purpose of the project is to develop an improved transportation corridor connecting the junction of US 385 and L62A with the city of Minutair. The corridor improvement is intended to provide an improved highway on the congressionally designated National Highway System high priority corridor that increases the efficiency and safety of travel. It's also to fulfill federal legislative intent of numerous highway bills passed by Congress since 1991. It's also to fulfill the state legislative intent of the Build Nebraska Act and the Transportation Innovation Act, and to address roadway and operational challenges of the existing facility. The project is needed because Congress has designated this corridor for completion. The federal and state government legislative actions have provided ongoing funding and intent to construct it, and there are numerous roadway and operational challenges within the existing facility that reduces the efficiency and safety. The project starts on US 26, just west of Minutair's Main Street, and extends east to the junction of US 26 and L62A. The project continues on L62A to the junction of US 385 for a total length of 18.5 miles. The proposed project expands the existing two-lane highway to a four-lane facility using the 2+2 configuration by using as much of the existing lanes as possible. The intersections will be improved and they'll be controlled access throughout the project. The study of alignment alternatives and preliminary design are completed, and we have moved into final design. As part of the NEPA process, we conducted public involvement. The final EA has been approved, and the final decision of finding no significant impact, or FONSI, was signed by FHWA on May 9th. The improvements will reconstruct US 26 on alignment to a four-lane divided roadway with a raised median from Main Street in Minutair to just east of the corporate limits in Minutair. It will widen US 26 and L62A east of Minutair from an existing two-lane facility to a four-lane divided roadway with a depressed median using the 2+2 strategy. It will also include milling and resurfacing the existing lanes, which will remain in place. It will use the existing bridge over 9 Mile Creek and construct a new bridge north of the new lanes with the US 26. Additional improvements will include building and extending or replacing drainage structures, improving intersections, modifying accesses, and removing and replacing guardrail. Now we'll discuss some project history. The project has been around for a long time. In 1991, Congress identified the full extent of the Heartland Expressway as a high priority corridor from Denver through Scottsbluff to Rapid City. In 1993, the Heartland Expressway Economic and Engineering Feasibility Study conducted by the NDOT and South Dakota DOT recommended feasibility and routing of the corridor between Scottsbluff and Rapid City. In 2000, a final environmental assessment was completed and a FONSI signed, and it selected a 4-lane divided highway on 26 and L62A from Scottsbluff to US 385. In 2011, the Build Nebraska Act passed a 0.25% sales tax for the Nebraska Expressway system, federally designated high priority corridors, and preservation of the existing highway system. In 2014, the Heartland Expressway Corridor Development and Management Plan reevaluated and updated the entire corridor for economic benefits and economic impacts. In 2016, the NDOT STEEP process selected this corridor as a 4-lane divided highway expansion project because it fills in the gap in the Heartland Expressway and has a broad regional and local support. As shown in the red circles, note that the Scottsbluff to Minutair 4-lane facility was constructed in 2019, and the 4-lane facility along US 35 from L62A north to Alliance was completed in 2022. This project will fill the gap between these two 4-lane highways. In 2021, FHWA and NDOT determined that enough changes had occurred since the approval of the original environmental assessment and that a new EA was needed, and early agency coordination began. The public was provided an opportunity to comment and view alternatives for the project at the information open house in September of 2022. In November of last year, we conducted the public hearing regarding the draft environmental assessment and preferred alternative, which is to construct the additional 2 lanes north of on the north side of the existing lanes. Now I'd like to walk you through some design features. As I stated, the improvements for a 4-lane facility in this project will use the 2+2 construction concept and construct the 2 new lanes adjacent to the existing 2 lanes to create the 4-lane facility. Using the 2+2 approach will allow improvements to be constructed without a detour. While new lanes are being built on one side, traffic will be maintained on the existing lanes. Once the new lanes are completed, one direction of traffic will be shifted onto the new lanes. Where needed, the existing lanes will be repaired and resurfaced 1 lane at a time while maintaining traffic. This construction approach will minimize traffic disruption and maximize the use of the existing roadway. This slide shows the typical rural 4-lane section. The new lanes on the north will have 2 12-foot wide lanes, an 8-foot paved shoulder on the outside, and a 4-foot paved shoulder on the inside. The depressed median will be 54-foot wide. There will be a short segment of US 26 through Minutair that will include a 10-foot raised median that will transition to the 54-foot depressed median east of Minutair. Note that we are constructing a 10-foot raised median in lieu of our typical 4-foot based on comments that we received at the public hearing regarding pedestrians crossing US 26 from Minutair to the Dollar General on the other side of US 26. This will give the pedestrians a refuge and provide the necessary width for any future pedestrian crossing. NDOT will resurface the existing roadway that will become the 2 lanes for eastbound traffic. This will preserve the existing asset, save cost, and reduce the time to complete the project. It is anticipated that the project will be constructed under traffic with lane closures controlled by appropriate traffic control devices and practices. Temporary servicing may be required to accommodate phase construction. Short detours for county roads may be needed to construct intersections, but adjacent county roads would not be closed at the same time. Access to adjacent properties would be maintained during construction, but may be limited at times due to traffic phasing requirements. Access control is the regulation of public access locations abutting the highway facility. This concept provides a safer environment, increases efficiency of movement, and reduces accidents by minimizing conflict points. NDOT's access control consists of, or access control criteria consists of relocating and consolidating existing accesses, establishing the appropriate spacing, providing full access at county road intersections, and between county road intersections, the minimum spacing is approximately 1,000 feet and have no more than 3 per mile. And we look at opportunities for right-in and right-out accesses to reduce frontage roads at field entrances. We also provide access from county roads versus the highway. In September of 2022, we conducted an informal public information meeting, and we had a total of approximately 103 people attend. We also met with some cities, counties, and 4 irrigation districts that we have along the project. In November of 24, we conducted the formal public hearing, and we had approximately 98 attend. We also met individually with 20 property owners that represented 10 of the relocations necessary for the project. Many of the responses were in support of the project. 2 senators, the City Alliance manager, and the Scottsbluff County Commissioner all went on record supporting the project. Property owners along the project had questions and concerns about impacts to their property. There were a few comments regarding the pedestrians crossing the highway at Minutair to get to the Dollar General, and as I stated earlier, we are going to construct a wider raised median to provide for that refuge to accommodate them. We have completed the final EA, and we will continue to work on final design. We will start to buy right away yet this year. Construction can begin as early as 2026. The estimated cost, based on preliminary design, is $94.7 million. That concludes my presentation. At this time, I'll request Highway Commission recommendation of the project location, design, and use of access control on the project. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? There is a resolution for approval of this in the packet. As soon as this passes, commissioners here will sign it, and then the commissioners online decide it. Further questions? Second, resolution number 25-2.
The item in question is the approval of resolution number 2025-2. The Nebraska Department of Transportation requests the State Highway Commission recommend to the governor approval of NDOT's corridor study, design, and control of access for the U.S. Highway 26 and Link 62A project on the state highway system. Additionally, NDOT is seeking the advice of the State Highway Commission and the consent of the governor for the use of control of access on this project as required by Nebraska RevStat 39-1327.
All rolls.
Commissioner Hawks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kindig,
Yes.
Commissioner Leafree,
Yes.
Commissioner Mello,
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolford.
Yes. Okay, passed. Next item on our agenda is Highway 14 Central City Viaduct location and relinquishment access control booth.
Very good. All right, good morning, Director Kramer. Good morning, Commissioners. Again, I'm Brandy Neiman, State Roadway Design Engineer for the Department of Transportation. Here for the second time with you this year and to present a couple of projects to you. So we'll go ahead and start with the Central City Viaduct project. That's why you said it. Oh, I'm off already. All right, this morning I'll provide an overview of the project, show some design features, present the cost and schedule, and then request Highway Commissioner recommendation of the project location, design, use of access control, and relinquishment on the project. The purpose of the Central City Viaduct project is to eliminate conflicts between the trains and vehicles at the existing at-grade crossing of N14 and the Union Pacific Railroad, to reduce traffic congestion and associated delays at the railroad crossing and at the intersection of US 30 and Highway 14, and finally, to improve operations and reduce crash costs associated with the existing N14 and US 30 intersection. The department identifies the need for railroad grade separation structures by considering the potential number of conflicts between trains and road users. This is known as the exposure factor, also traffic delays and crash costs. The highway crossing in N14, the Union Pacific Railroad meets the NDOT thresholds for considering grade separation. And the department has also determined a need to address operational challenges at the existing intersection of Highway 14 and US 30. This project will address segments of both Highway 14 and US 30 in Central City, and just over 1 mile of these highways will be constructed or reconstructed in order to build the new viaduct. The project is located in both a business district as well as near residential areas of the community, so there has been a number of interested parties throughout the life of the project. There will be several different roadway cross sections along the project, ranging from a 2-lane highway along N14 to an urban 3-lane facility with pedestrian accommodations and on-street parking along US Highway 30. And I'll review these a little bit more later in the presentation. A study of alignment alternatives and preliminary design are complete, and we are now ready to move into final design for the project. Also, as a part of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA process, an environmental assessment was developed, and we conducted public involvement throughout that time. The final EA has been approved by the Federal Highway Administration, and similar to Dawn's project, a finding of no significant impact decision has been made. If I'm in the right place now. Generally, this project will reconfigure the downtown intersection of US 30 and N14 to one-way pairs. The US 30 highway will be reconstructed from C Avenue on the west side of Central City to 13th Avenue on the east. Highway 14 will be relocated to accommodate construction of a new viaduct over the Union Pacific Railroad. 2 at-grade railroad crossings will be closed and pedestrian accommodations will be provided. A roundabout will be constructed where the relocated Highway 14 ties back to existing Highway 14. And finally, existing Highway 14 through Central City from US 30 to 10th Street will be repaired prior to being relinquished to the city. Next, I'll talk about some of the design features. As I mentioned, the project does have several different roadway cross sections as we go through just this short 1-mile stretch of the community. And so I put a map up in the top right-hand corner so you can see where we're at as I describe the different cross sections. Hopefully you can see that okay. But I'll go ahead and start with segment A. This represents the area of US 30 west of a US 30 and 14 intersection. And this segment will be a 3-lane curb section with sidewalk and on-street parking opportunities at some locations. The reconfigured intersection of existing US 30 and N14, noted as segment B, will be reconstructed as one-way pairs. Both directions will be curved and have 2 lanes in each the northbound and southbound direction, provide pedestrian accommodations and some on-street parking in designated locations. And these intersections with US 30 will be signalized. Continuing east to segment C along US 30, this is the area through that intersection from B Avenue to 16th Avenue, and it'll be a curved 2-lane section with a raised median. Sidewalk will also be constructed along both sides of US 30. And then again, as we head further east along segment D, segment D, US 30 will be reconstructed as a 3-lane curved section. We'll have a continuous center left turn lane, sidewalks, and on-street parking in designated locations. Segment E represents the new viaduct over the Union Pacific Railroad. The bridge will be constructed as a curbed two-lane section with surface shoulders and pedestrian accommodations on the east side of the bridge. I'll describe this feature more on the next slide. The final section, segment F, is a relocated segment of Highway 14. Here, the highway will be constructed as a curved two-lane section with surface shoulders. New pedestrian accommodations will be constructed on the east and then north as it curves around side of the highway. And you'll see that I highlighted the new pedestrian facilities here. Last year at the public hearing, we presented some varying sidewalk widths in this location. And after receiving many public comments, both at the hearing and in written form, the department further evaluated this design feature and modified the design to increase the width to meet current shared use path requirements. So now a 10-foot wide pathway will be constructed along Highway 14 from US 30 to where it ties back into Highway 14 north in Central City. As part of the NEPA process and preparation of the environmental assessment, many environmental resources had to be reviewed or investigated, and alternative alignment designs and a matrix of impacts were developed. We conducted multiple public meetings and addressed questions and comments, and from this, we were able to select the preferred alternative for this project. As I mentioned before, the final EA is complete, and the FONSI decision has been made by FHWA. Maybe not quite as long as a project that Dawn presented, but this project also has quite a long history. So a few highlights are summarized here for you today. So starting back in 1996, Central City actually approached the department to perform a study to determine whether or not a grade separation structure would be justified. And that study did indeed conclude that one would be. So then in 2007, initial environmental reviews began for the grade separation. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Sorry about that. Am I in 2007 now? I lost my place. In 2007, we began the investigation, and we were looking at constructing a bypass alternative that would follow another rail. That was actually in 2007. I've lost my place entirely after I had to sneeze. Sorry about that. We were going to use abandoned railroad right of way to relocate Highway 14 and construct a grade separation. 2007, we did those studies. In 2011, we knew that we couldn't do that. We couldn't make use of that railroad right of way to construct a highway facility. And so we reprogrammed that project to build a grade separation that did not include a bypass any longer. In 2016, a public information meeting was held to present various alternatives and gather input and support for the project as it stood at that time. I should have probably switched my slides, so I'll just keep talking anyway about what we did before this. In 2021, another public information meeting was held to present the alternatives that we had considered but eliminated for further consideration, and then talk about those that were being brought forward. And this included options for both viaduct locations as well as that intersection configuration at US 30 and N14 that we needed to address. In 2024, more environmental reviews and alternative refinement was conducted, and we also did a lot of coordination with the Union Pacific Railroad to get to the point where we're on the slide here with a formal public hearing in December of 2024. About 155 people attended this hearing, and we received about 48 comments from the public during the comment period. I've listed some of the topics that we received comments on through this process, but overall there was tremendous support for the project. Obviously, they've been waiting for this project for a number of years, but there were concerns about pedestrian access along the highway, the relocated Highway 14. I described that earlier. We widened out that design feature. They were concerned about some parking availability, maybe traffic volumes along US 30 and impacts to downtown businesses during construction. So now to identify that preferred alternative, design team had to address a lot of challenges in the area. First, that existing intersection of US 30 and Highway 14 presented a lot of operational challenges. It's got quite the skew going through there. And so we had to do a lot of different alignment alternatives and studies to try to figure out how we can improve this. We knew that once we relocated Highway 14, that the operations were likely to worsen at that location. So we reviewed quite a few geometric options, some operations, we took public feedback, and it was determined that the one-way pairs would be the preferred alternative for this location. As you can see, the northbound lanes would remain pretty close to existing Highway 14, and southbound Highway 14 would be shifted over to C Avenue. Both of these analyzed, and the timing of those signals would be coordinated to enhance operational efficiency. We were not able to replace one-to-one all of the on-street parking that's in the area, but multiple options have been included with the project's design. The segment of US 30 will largely be a 3-lane curb section, as I previously described. Again, a portion of Highway 14 will be constructed on new alignments, starting from US 30, about halfway between 14th Avenue and 13th Avenue, proceed to the north and then crossing over the Union Pacific Railroad tracks, and then proceeding west to connect back to existing Highway 14 at 10th Street in Central City. Retaining walls will be constructed in some areas to minimize impacts to the adjacent properties, and cul-de-sacs will be constructed at some local roads to accommodate the new highway and the viaduct. We've conducted extensive coordination again with the Union Pacific Railroad to determine that the structural requirements are met and that the operations won't be impacted by the project. In addition to that, on the southern end there, the new Highway 14 alignment will also parallel the west side of the NCRC railroad tracks. Coordination is already underway with that rail line also to make sure that their operations wouldn't be impacted by the new project. As I described earlier, where the new Highway 14 connects back to the old Highway 14, a roundabout will be constructed. The south intersection of US 30 and the relocated Highway 14 will be constructed as a conventional intersection with right and left turn lanes. The intersection will not be signalized. Pedestrian accommodations will be constructed to connect to the Dark Island Trail. You can kind of see that at the bottom side of the slide. And as I previously mentioned, we'll be constructing that 10-foot wide pathway in response to public comments. A dedicated pedestrian overpass will not be constructed due to the high impacts that would be associated with it, including those to residential properties and businesses, as well as the high costs that would be associated with that. The existing pedestrian crossings of the railroad tracks at D Avenue and at C Avenue would remain in place. The at-grade railroad crossings at both F Avenue and C Avenue would remain open to local traffic. However, the at-grade crossings of existing Highway 14, which is the western location on the map here, and at 13th Avenue, 14th Street, or the east location shown on the map, will be closed to local traffic. Dawn has already described our access control policy, so I won't repeat that for you now, but for this project, NDOT does intend to purchase limited new access control at specific locations along the project, primarily along that new Highway 14 near the viaduct or key intersections. And these details are going to be refined during the final design process. Existing Highway 14 from US 30 to 10th Street will be repaired prior to relinquishment to Central City. A program agreement was executed with Central City in November 2024. This agreement was intended to define financial maintenance and other responsibilities, but it also included a commitment from Central City to accept relinquishment of this highway in that location as a condition of the department building the project. We'll enter into a formal relinquishment agreement later. We'll continue to work on final design now that the final EA is complete and the NEPA decision has been made, and we'll be doing that through the coming year. We anticipate we'll begin purchasing right-of-way later this year and into 2026 so that construction can begin as early as 2027 for this new viaduct. It's anticipated that construction will take 2 years to complete. And based on our preliminary design, the estimate is $36 million, and it's funded by federal, state, local, and Union Pacific Railroad funding sources. And that will conclude my presentation on the Central City Viaduct project. And at this time, I'd also like to request Highway Commissioner recommendation of the project location, design, use of access control, and relinquishment of the short segment of N14 from US 30 to 10th Street. And I've also included that resolution in your packets. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions? Okay. Do not have a relinquishment agreement yet with Central City. Are we back to that?
I believe that this was the only relinquishment approval we would have through the commission. We would enter that formal relinquishment agreement much later in the process after the project is built and we have those other opportunities.
So, Commissioner, you looked at this highway in the past.
And, you know. Sorry. Really, praise. They're on your feedback. So, last budget meeting. Showed. But Devin. Really. And a lot of public input. Make it, not everybody. Came, but it took a lot of work. But it's, you know, everybody's been in San Jose. See how the street, and this affected a lot of business. I didn't. And I don't know what Brandy's on, but the last meeting, to me, is pretty positive. So.
Said right. Moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2025-3.
Item in question is the approval of resolution number 2025-3. The Nebraska Department of Transportation requests the State Highway Commission recommend to the governor approval of NDOT's border location and design for Highway 14 Central City Viaduct project on the state highway system. NDOT is also seeking the advice of the State Highway Commission and the consent of the governor for the use of controlled access in this project as required by Nebraska Revised Statute 39-1327 and for the relinquishment of existing Highway 14 that will not be included within the new highway alignment after completion of the railroad viaduct and the new alignment as required by Nebraska Revised Statute 39-1110, parentheses 1, parentheses A. Commissioner Cox,
Yes.
Commissioner Kindig,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee Green,
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Yes.
Commissioner Mello,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolford.
Yes. Resolution number 3. Move on to the Highway 92 viaduct relocation and relinquishment and access control.
Right, you couldn't get rid of me. We're gonna keep the theme going with some grade separations, and we'll talk about this BNSF Bridgeport Viaduct. Similar to the last project, I'll present some overview information, design features, cost, schedule, and then request Highway Commission recommendation of the project location, design, use of access control, and relinquishment on the project. Again, similar to the previous project, the Bridgeport Viaduct project is intended to eliminate conflicts between trains and vehicles at the existing US 26 and 92 at-grade BNSF railroad crossing, reduce delays at the at-grade crossing, and finally, to reduce crash costs associated with the existing railroad crossing. Again, the department identifies need for grade separation structures by considering that exposure factor, traffic delays, and crash costs. This location also meets NDOT thresholds for considering grade separation. Additionally, the department has received comments from the public regarding trains blocking the crossing to switch rails or perform other rail operations, creating an inability for emergency responders to cross the tracks. And this viaduct will eliminate the critical emergency response time. This project will address segments of US 26 and 92 in Bridgeport. Less than 1 mile of the highway will be constructed or reconstructed. A lot's going to go on in this 1 mile, though. The project is located on the western side of Bridgeport, where there are businesses, industry, and some residential properties. Again, there'll be several different rotary cross sections along this project, all of which are varying 2-lane configurations that I'll describe later. And today, alternatives preliminary design are nearly complete, and we're preparing to move into final design in the coming months. As part of the NEPA process, an environmental assessment or EA was developed and we conducted public involvement. The final EA will be submitted to the Federal Highway Administration later this year. Generally, the project will construct US 26 and 92 on new alignment. The highway will be relocated to the south of the existing alignment to accommodate the new viaduct. Existing at-grade railroad crossing will be closed to traffic and pedestrian accommodations will be provided. A unique feature to this project is the Western Area Power Association, or WAPA, who operates an electrical substation adjacent to the highway. And some of their transmission lines will need to be raised in advance of NDOT's project. And we've been actively coordinating for quite some time with WAPA on this activity. Also, existing US 26 and 92 will be left in place to, I should probably go back. It'll be left in place to provide access to the businesses that are located on that north side of the highway, as well as substation and residences. These segments will be repaired prior to relinquishing to the city. And now we'll look at some of those design features. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to construct several different cross sections along the roadway. On all of the segments will result in a 2-lane highway. Similar to the last project, we have a legend up in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. I'll work from east to west as I describe the different sections along the highway, starting with segment A at the easternmost end of the project. From J Street to the viaduct, a curbed 2-lane section will be built and a sidewalk will be provided on the north side of the highway. Heading to the west of segment B, or along the actual viaduct, a 2-lane roadway with surface shoulders will be built and the sidewalk will continue over the viaduct on the north side. Heading west to segment C, which is the portion from the viaduct to the realigned C Street, a 2-lane section with a curb on the north side and surface shoulder on the south will be constructed. Again, the sidewalk will continue along the north side of the highway here. And finally, segment D, from the realigned C Street to the west project limits, a rural 2-lane section with surface shoulders to match the existing cross section of US 26 and then 92 will be built, and there will be no sidewalks constructed here. Again, as part of that NEPA process, preparation of an environmental assessment, many design alternatives and environmental resources were investigated, and through this process, we were able to determine a preferred alternative for this project as well. As I mentioned earlier, that final EA is set to go to the Federal Highway Administration for approval later this year. Again, we're shortening up our time. We have to go back with these projects. So this one actually started back in 2005, and I'll give you a few highlights of this one as well. We began this project again evaluating whether a grade separation would be justified at the location in 2005, but by 2007, just a couple of years later, we had to put the project on hold because we didn't have any funding identified for the project. 2014, we picked that back up. We had a public information open house to present 4 build alternatives for public input. In 2015, we did another public information open house to share feedback on the original alternatives and present the 2 remaining alternatives for input. Lots of coordination and effort was put in that gap there. And in 2024, we did some very extensive coordination, entering into some agreements with WAPA to do that utility relocation that needs to be done. Those efforts are still underway today. Just recently, last month on May 13th, we conducted a formal public hearing to present the preferred design alternative to the public. About 69 people were in attendance and we received 15 comments through the comment period for this project. We did conduct a few stakeholder meetings in advance of the project for people who were particularly impacted by this viaduct project. Again, I've listed some general concerns about the project that we received through that time and included some support for the project as well as concerns about the project cost, impacts to businesses, and how access to the Bridgeport State Recreation Area would be provided. Comments are still being reviewed and responses are being developed now for those comments. Addressing those challenges is what we do to get to the preferred alternative. And so one of the things that we needed to consider here was balancing impacts to residences and businesses on the east side of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad tracks. And for this, we'll be building retaining walls to minimize these impacts and really bring our footprint in on the project. As we previously, or as I previously described, that WAPA operates the electrical substation on the west side of Bridgeport, just south of the highway. Again, some really careful coordination has had to occur to make sure that they would be able to raise up those lines and maintain service at that facility. And finally, maintain access to those adjacent businesses and properties in the area as a whole has required a lot of thoughtful analysis and design, and we're still considering some public comments we received regarding that from the hearing and whether that will result in some design modifications on the project. So after we considered all of these things, again, the preferred alignment for the new viaduct is relocated to the south of the existing highway, but it'll tie back in as quickly as possible to the existing US 26 and 92, just on the east side of the railroad tracks. C Avenue on the west side of the project, you can kind of see it there in the red color, will also be realigned to provide access to the businesses on the west side of the railroad tracks. Similar to the previous project, a dedicated pedestrian overpass will not be constructed, but new sidewalks will be added along the north side of the relocated highway from C Street to the eastern project limits. The existing Acre Railroad crossing at US 26 and 92 will be closed to both vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Again, we'll be looking at some limited access control along this project, and I won't go into those details that Dawn already presented for us, but those details will be refined once we move into final design. And similar to the previous project, again, there will be some relinquishment on this project once we're done building the new viaduct. Existing in US 26 and 92 has to remain in place so that it'll provide access to those businesses. We'll have to do some pavement removal to eliminate the connection back or where the highway is being relocated. But the remaining surfacing will be repaired and then relinquished to the city of Bridgeport. We executed a program agreement with them just a couple weeks ago that also included their commitment to accept relinquishment upon completion of the project as a condition of the department building it. This year, we'll continue to work on that final environmental assessment for submittal to FHWA, and then final design and right-of-way acquisition is anticipated to continue into 2027, so that construction can begin as early as 2028. It's anticipated that construction will again take 2 years to complete and it will cost approximately $16 million. Project will be funded by federal, state, and BNSF funding sources.
Brandy,
Yes, sir.
can you go back to the picture?
This one?
Yeah. So how will they have access to the recreation area?
So it's chopped off of this slide, and I don't know if I have a map in the deck that shows. Let me scroll back through a couple others. There we go. They can use J Street to go to West Railroad Avenue, travel underneath and over to Rec Road, which is kind of covered up. Does this have a pointer? Oh, this will be.
Because that's a very heavily used area.
We did hear a lot about that at the public hearing. And there were several individuals who talked about making their own way to the rec area that.
Through the recreation, I mean, through the residential area.
Right.
And
It just
they
depended
were
on,
that.
we really, and I don't even think that West 4th Street is paved. I can't recall for sure off the top of my head. And so that did bring some concerns from some folks. And in fact, we had a few design suggestions to change and build some frontage there on the north side of the highway to see if there was an opportunity to let people come over. But of course, there's residential properties on that side that would be impacted by trying to provide an access on the north side instead of going down and around.
Yeah, I'm sure people that use it a lot will actually go on the north side and go through probably the residential area instead of going there. But
They might.
okay,
Ready to move on?
yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Well, that just gets me to the end of the presentation for the BNSF Bridgeport Viaduct project, where at this point, we'd like to request Highway Commission recommendation of the project location, design, use of access control, and relinquishment of the existing US 26 and 92 that will not be included in the new alignment. And again, a resolution has been provided.
Do you have any questions? Second. We can second it to approve resolution number 2025-4.
And one question is the approval of resolution number 2025-4. The Nebraska Department of Transportation requests the State Highway Commission recommend to the governor approval of NDOT's corridor location and design for Highway 2692 Bridgeport Viaduct project in the state highway system. NDOT is also seeking the advice of the State Highway Commission and the consent of the governor for the use of control of access in this project as required by Nebraska Revised Statute 39-1327 and for the relinquishment of the portion of highways 2692 that will not be included within the new highway alignment after completion of the railroad viaduct as required by Nebraska Revised Statute 39-11101.
Call roll, please.
Commissioner Hawks?
Yeah.
Commissioner Kinday?
Yes.
Commissioner Luke Green?
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis?
Yes.
Commissioner Mello?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolfen?
Yes. Next item on the agenda is director. Brandon?
Yes, thank you. I'll start with the safety element. A joint press conference with the Nebraska State Patrol on Tuesday to talk about the troopers being incident in District 2 this last week. I think the alarming trend that we continue to see is motorists not paying attention to the road lanes. So this was the third incident that law enforcement has had in the last 2.5 weeks. And so we continue to work with our law enforcement partners to make sure that people understand the importance of taking personal responsibility and being active and present when they're driving. Distracted driving isn't known to be the cause, but it's most likely, we see 28% roughly of all crashes are somewhere within the sense of distraction. I think that's pretty much a known number. Gap statistics. So we'll continue to work on this issue, but we do ask that at every level, safety that we have within the world, the safety world, we continue to push and lead taking that responsibility. We also, in terms of the construction season, give us the opportunity to look at how many construction zones we have. So it's like about 167. That's the state. So as you mark, some of those districts are heavily active this year, and we'll be wrapping up the season that we found later this year. Next year looks a little different. We did push out quantities to the agency earlier this month, and we will be publishing our 2026 construction book for next week. And so it's been calculated at 722 million, which is pretty sad to where it was last year and previous years. We tabled that with an understanding that buying power is increases. So inflation rates see around 15%. We continue to see the buying layer that's to be in construction. And the ability to purchase and be able to build new homes and continue to maintain the standard that we want. It is at this. And, you know, as Mark talked about, the rural versus urban is starting to become relevant. It's not a verse or this and that, or a rural should be worse important than urban or vice versa. It's where we're able to assume risk. And as the leadership has to work at is if there's less, we have to figure out where we're assume risk. And as Brandon went through these last two projects, you see that these projects have been out there for 30 to 20 years. That's where we're at right now. We see the projects that we have on the horizon are being pushed to the right because we're going to have to assume more risk to find power is being managed. And so it's not an easy choice. There are no easy choices for safety, but at this point, we're right. The resources don't match. So we continue to address and do what we have. Make sure that, as always, the preservation of our existing resources. We don't want to lose sight of putting something where no one have significant costs. So we'll continue to prioritize preservation. Following that, we talked last meeting about healthy firefighting, which was the funding task force that's been put together. So we're working with agency and the leadership there to inform the legislature and that group put together. We started collecting information so that there is a sense of truth into those studies that we put out is due December 1st. So we do look at that as a way that we can see those different gaps in funding. Make sure that it's understood what the impact is. Everything sounds true. And we can make our program out of 700 million. We can make our program out of 1.2 billion. It's what's the difference, right? And what's the desire for our centuries? We push back capacity. Is that what's desired, or is that what's expected? For example, when we started to look at program, when we started to Nebraska Act program as projects. 2 years ago, we pushed out, I would agree with more several years, there was a good amount of that. Probably not to leave that with 2022. Absolutely, these projects in the administrative Americans make sure that these projects are pushed out so that people understand not just when we critical, but when we deployment is important. So expectation management and continue to happen. This last week, we did meet with the AI group, which allowed us to bring in our leadership across the departments, dealing with construction projects as well as funding projects. And as the governor has said, it's time we need to figure out how to, there's lack of resources, how can we do more of what we have, and how can we get smarter in finance. And so we are seeking out industry leadership for how we can potentially finance projects. And so we did do a response on a similar part of that. We are also looking at what are the better finance options available to us under the Constitution and under current statute, and how can we leverage to so continue to do this gives one options in reality. With that was there's any question.
Just how serious was, I mean, there were remarks by, I'm not sure who the individual was, but talking about the funding would be based more on where the revenue is actually coming from. How serious is that? Because that would devastate the rural areas.
It would. So in terms of logistically how it could happen, it would be very difficult for us to make that work. And we explain that to some of the projects. And I would say that he's very serious about it and wants to be an active participant in understanding how we can bring more money to the urban area. You know, as we look at the economic development needs, we are working with urban areas so that we understand where they're growing, what their transportation needs are. Governor has a 6-region approach to economic development. So we're also looking at the 6 regions to understand how those different pieces. So to answer your question, logistically, I think that the way that it's proposed, it is a bit of a non-starter. Just conceptually, could that happen? Yes, but it probably means that there would be a new revenue source that the future benefits of that. And so what we've made our cases is that we cannot take from one to get to the other. We have a standard of maintaining our current system, but if we revenue introduce well, we want to might see that growth. But we have to maintain that side quality of our roads. So as well as delivering some of the safety projects and passive projects, a willingness to be to buy that projects from following the science and safety. So making sure that projects themselves continue to it's like so just being much more open to
Question? Okay. I think we have a couple of remarks. It's interesting, our last meeting we were pretty on. District Two, populace. They are least populous. But honestly, the district engineer proposal is asking. Well, money, you know. I would also say that has been going on since I've been on the highway commission. Presentation of the district engineer, so all looks out. Ways out, so we're going to come with a problem. But we did the needs assessment in 2007. By him and by the commission. I think that's shown that it's work. Set regulation. With all of them. Rule and yes, we did a good thing. We look at the in the science. We're going to look at that in 2007 where we are today. Always. Urban rule, everything. It had been success. That's the story. The other thing, when we made that decision in 2007, it actually stood up in the legislature and said they don't have money to people grasping for capital payments. That was the impetus for the bill grasping. So we've got business club. I mean, measure right to see that the piece is going to grasp the whole. So the market is doing the right thing. We need to make sure we continue to sort of all of it.
So you're sharing with me the frameworks. I think it's sometimes difficult to explain to people that everything in transportation happens in a day. And so when you look at this, the high upside that you're seeing now is very much a reflection of the gas tax increase we saw in space in the years, right? So we're seeing that the benefits of breaks of those labor. We have been talking about with the funding for the last 2.5 years since I've been director, because we see it on the horizon. Have an opportunity to do something about it. We've worked and we've got about another year. And then we're going to start seeing our end side drop to when we can't fix it over 37 years, right? And then it becomes largely capacity for preservation. And I would say we've got about another year before we see that, and we can't come do it in a short amount of time. And so that's where we really see the need to do something about it, to make it understood on buying power versus just overall investment. Inflation has been really impacted us, and we saw this with that with the housing crunches. Inflation doesn't just go, we're not going to go backwards. We're going to level set, but we're not going to go backwards. So we're never going to go back to the time where a new line of pavement cost us $5 million. You might drop from 14 to 11 to maybe 7, which is a huge increase going from 15 to 7. But around to 5%. And so what does that mean for us? And what does that mean for many for projects that are looking at avoiding the miles and rates? It means that we've got to get very smart on when we program these projects out, because we also don't want to be on that corridor for 10 years. And so how do we, when do we start to how do we move this forward? So it's become very much the need to look at our programs, how we're going to put them down for some years. And that's what to say. Those things, those conversations, and those exercises are happening now after last year, because we cannot to shoot. And really, we can always do and survive on it. But we have to manage the expectation of the public so that we understand this is why you're not trying to fix it. It's what is the expectation of the public? With the gas tax rate as it currently is, you're still you're still under $200 of what the average position in and I think we're still going to go higher than that one. And so it's an education. So this right, people that went to 2007 and going to pass that for the rest of that to 2011, they're not active. And And so letting a new state.
So we had a meeting years ago and had a farmer come up and said, I want you to build the Heartland Expressway, but don't waste the gas. So, I mean, that's pretty much a comment here all the time.
Does he want us to?
Don't want to pay for it, but build it.
Does he want to add sales tax increments? I mean, the tax base has to come to line, or you run the sales tax base, increase the sales tax, or they do it to us. We don't know how to do it. So we are actively looking at all user taxes and making sure that we're getting our fair share of revenues generated from transportation, it goes to us. Getting us creative as any other location pattern interstate as well. But I think to your point, 5 million here, 6 million here, 3 million here, we want that. Together they can build a model of that. We gotta really look at that in order to really do that. To address that.
Public meetings, Carolyn?
There are, as of the writing of this agenda, no public meetings scheduled between now and the next commission meeting, which will be held at 8:30 a.m. on August 22nd, 2025, at the Mid-Plains Community College North Campus at 1101 Halligan Drive in North Platte, Nebraska.
For the business, we're adjourned.